mute all chat every game, just from the start. Always go Fairy Fire over the just second Tango. I think the item's really broken. I wouldn't recommend Warlock in low level pubs at all. I do pretty much the same build every game if it's a stick lane, which is you need to keep the small camp blocked all the time against melee 5s for sure. You can kind of safely assume that most people you play with are not very emotionally strong, especially this bracket. It's the worst in the whole. This bracket's the worst.
This will be challenging for me.
This is Ari, 12k MMR position 4 player for OG. He was coaching Grubby on his stream recently and shared lots of great tips for improvement.
The thing is, everyone else in your game has no idea about anything in the game, because that's why they're in this bracket.
Yeah.
It's not like anything they think is correct.
Yeah.
So if you listen to anything they say, you're going to make yourself worse at the game.
Yes.
They might be right, but they're not. It's just a chance.
His point here is that if you're constantly listening to the opinions of people at your rank, you're going to be limiting your knowledge base to that rank. If you want to be 8k, you need to be taking in the strategies and opinions of 8k players. And what helps this approach is to mute all incoming chat.
If you're listening to 6k opinions all the time, and you don't think beyond that, then you are just having 6k opinions.
Yeah.
And you can't go beyond that. That's what you have to remember.
This is actually a strategy I adopted as well when grinding MMR, and found it extremely helpful for focusing on my own gameplay and improvement. All that being said, Ari does acknowledge that having chat enabled can provide value, but most likely won't help you improve that much.
Well, to some extent, having chat is good because you can make calls that you think are good and then decide if it was good or not to make that call. Like, was this good? Is this bad?
So that's what you're learning.
Yeah.
Having chat makes you better at using chat for good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, for example, in my pubs, I still try to make calls just because I feel like it's good. And then I'll decide after if it was good or not. And then I'm improving.
Yes.
So I use my team as bait to help me improve, kind of, but...
Yeah.
So chat can be good if used correctly to test if a play is good or not. Then, after the fact, you can reflect on the situation and determine if you are right or wrong, helping you make better decisions in future similar situations. You just need to have the confidence to make a call and be wrong, because in the end, as long as you're being active about your improvement, you will be getting better.
If you're completely emotionally perfect, then having chat is just good. Because
Yes.
you can filter out what's useless.
Yes.
And just play with your team. But it's very difficult because these people are very obnoxious usually, and they're also probably wrong. This is the problem.
Yes.
But if you can use it well to where you just make calls that you think are good, and then adapt your knowledge based on what happens, then that's really great. You'll improve really fast.
What about the fact that Dota is such a team-focused game? Wouldn't it be harmful to your team if you're not communicating?
Does it eliminate the potential of team effort for a win?
It's not like not listening to them necessarily helps you win, but it helps you improve if you don't listen to them too much. Like in any given game, you can talk with your team and have a higher chance to win the game because of that. But if you're taking their opinions as the truth, you're probably not going to improve as fast.
Yeah.
Because it's not like they really know what they're saying.
To conclude this point, be careful listening to your teammates, because they're probably wrong. And yes, that includes you too. Don't be out there having an ego and being stubborn thinking you're always right. Being wrong can be good. It shows that there's room for improvement. Instead, listen to higher ranked players to get higher ranked strategies and opinions, and consider muting chat to help this process.
To what degree were you consuming outside information when you started playing Dota? Did you watch guides and this and that?
Up until 5k-ish, 5k, 6k, I would
Yeah.
watch meta updates. I used to watch pro replays specifically. I would watch Miracle Juggernaut or whatever it
Yeah.
is on YouTube, highlights, and see how they play the lane, how they play the game, etc. That was the most useful thing, is watching pro replays. Because as they say, no one other than the pros actually knows what's good, what's correct. The others are a chance they might be correct, but they don't know. But that's different to just winning a pub by helping playing with your team. Of course, you have to make the best of what you have to win games, but for the sake of your improvement, it's not like anyone other than pros knows what's good.
So something I'm getting from all of this is that it seems like to Ari, the most important thing for improving and gaining MMR is making sure you're getting opinions and advice from higher ranked players, specifically pros, rather than players at the rank you're currently at. Also, improvement through trial and error is more important for your growth as a player compared to just winning games. If you make a call and it happens to be wrong, that's an opportunity for growth that'll help you make the correct decision in the future.
You have to learn through trial and error. That's how that goes. But just anything your teammate says, take it with a pinch of salt. They very well might be wrong,
Yeah.
no matter how confident they are. If they were right about everything, they would be 12k.
This next one was from Grubby's chat, which was questioning whether it's better to do the wrong thing together rather than the right thing separate. If you've played Dota long enough, you've definitely ran into this situation before. For example, the classic question, should we Rosh or go high ground? So what's the right play in this type of situation?
in any specific game, doing the wrong thing together is good, and you'll have a better chance of winning. So let's say the best play is to take Roche, and your team decides to go high ground. This is quite a common scenario.
Yeah.
And yes, it's better to go high ground as 5 than to have 2 guys take Roche and 3 guys go high ground. But the correct play was to go Roche. So you could say, let's try going high ground as 5. It's best to do it together.
Right.
And then decide yourself, okay, this probably wasn't the best play. Next time I should just tell my team to go Roche.
Yeah.
Remember, Ari is a 12k support player, so his opinion should have a lot of weight. He suggests that sometimes it's okay to make the less optimal play. What's crucial, according to him, is reflecting on that decision afterward. This way you can understand which choice would have been better and advocate for the correct play in the future. Ari seems to lean away from obsessing over the perfect decision in the heat of the moment or winning a single game. Instead, he places a high value on thoughtful reflection post-game. This approach, he believes, helps ensure that in future games, your decisions are more on point.
But yeah, it's
and
good
what
to
if
do
you
it
did
together.
tell them?
And they didn't want to, then you should go high ground together. But you still know yourself that it was better to go Roche. Even
it's
in my
for real.
games, let's say 60% of the time my team will listen, all of them will listen to what I say.
Yeah.
But still, sometimes people won't listen to what I say. So I'll just give up on my belief and just follow them, to help them do whatever they're doing.
So what if you're already against the play to go high ground and you're telling your team to go Roche, but they don't listen to you? Ari has already said that you should just go high ground with your team, but how do you mentally deal with that?
Like, do you need to carry a sign when you're going high ground? I do not believe in this.
No,
Do you get what I'm saying?
I mean, that's the worst thing you could do, is make them feel bad about what they're doing, or like you don't believe in what they're doing. Like, ideally, you just enable it as much as you can if that's what you're going to do. Thing is, you can kind of safely assume that most people you play with are not very emotionally strong or whatever. So it's up to you to be the emotionally strong one. So in a scenario where you unwillingly agree to do something, the best thing you can do is even take blame for it and say, "Oh, my bad, guys. We should have done this instead. My bad for calling this, guys."
You're 20. Very mature. Very mature take.
And then your team won't feel so bad about it. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, it's your fault, not my fault. Now I'm happy." You have to play the bad guy, I guess.
So essentially being your team's punching bag, like Ari is suggesting, is very hard to do and definitely not for everyone. His point on most players not being very emotionally strong, I would say, is true, and if you're not up for the job of punching bag for these people, here's at least what I'd suggest. Don't tell them how to play, and don't blame them for things. Doing either of these will often trigger people and make them respond in a very defensive way. Usually when people make a mistake in Dota, they know it right away, and they don't like to be told it, especially right after it happens.
But you can still separate what you do and how you actually internally feel. And then you can learn from it, but outwardly you're just helping your team win the game, doing what's best in that moment. And then you'll improve really fast.
Now Ari goes a bit into which types of heroes he thinks are good for having a high impact in winning games.
Can you do a different hero than Warlock? No.
Well, I wouldn't recommend Warlock in low-level pubs at all. It's probably really bad.
No, it's great.
This hero does not fit. Let's say when you're climbing, right, everyone else probably belongs to be in their bracket, most likely.
Yeah.
Whereas you, in theory, should belong above your bracket because you're actually climbing.
If you have that ambition or thought that
if you're actually
a
trying to
climbing player.
improve.
Yeah.
Playing a hero where you can't exceed your teammates is rough. I think the hero has low kill threat and can't really make plays, and he struggles if your team doesn't group up. And I feel like people don't group up much in
That's true.
lower levels. He's a team fight hero, that's what he is, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not team fighting, he's not good. I feel like the lower you go, the more skirmishy things happen.
I think what Ari is saying is that if you're playing a hero that relies on your team and specifically is a team fighting hero, it can be hard to exceed your teammates because your impact relies on them. For example, if you're playing Shadow Shaman, you could be a lot more impactful while being more independent. You can push side lanes and look for kills in them and pressure buildings with your ult. It's a lot easier to make plays and apply pressure while not being very reliant on your team.
But yeah, I agree. On average, Boots is griefing. What do you think I should have taken? Windlace, stick, or just consumables?
I do pretty much the same build every game if it's a stick lane, which is stick, blood grenade, fairy fire, branch, sentry, tango.
Oh, one tango.
Yeah.
So I always do two tango and no fair.
And then after 2 runes, the first 2 bounty runes, you get 140 gold. You can buy tango sentry of the courier, and now you have 2 tango, 2 sentry.
Makes
Block
sense.
enemy small, unblock your big.
Yeah.
And by the time you run out of tangos, your next tangos are coming, so you've got them again.
Boots first is common on Shaman. Why is that?
It makes more sense on Shaman because your base stats are really high, but your movement speed is really low, and attack range is really low. I mean, Shaman's a bit unique. There's 3 heroes in the game that you could buy boots level 1 on,
As a 4.
as a 4.
Which is?
Shaman, Tiny, Earthshaker, but even so, I would only do that 10% of games, maybe less. It's just not good.
And is half the time that you get those boots also to drag the wave behind your own tower?
Yep. Well, I'd only do it if I'm Dragon Wave. That's also
Only
another
do it
condition.
when dragging, okay.
Here, Ari briefly touches on starting items again, then talks about how he imagines this lane from one of Grubby's games should go. I thought this would be valuable for people to see how a 12k support player thinks a lane should be played based on the matchups alone. He also makes an interesting point in his analysis of the lane about blocking the small camp against melee supports.
You never buy Fairy Fire.
No, I'm always double tango, double branch.
I would always go Fairy Fire over the just second tango. I think the item's really broken.
Okay.
You'll basically win any fight to the death,
Okay.
and that happens very very often. You don't need 2 tangos because your second can come from courier.
Before watching the rest of this, what do you think? You are with Tiny, you're against Lifestealer, Treant, presumably.
Yeah.
What goes through your minds of how you want to play the lane?
You can pretty much 1v2 this lane because they're double melee, they can't kill you, and you have crazy damage. And ideally you shock 2 heroes at once every time. You need to keep the small camp blocked all the time against melee 5s for sure, because melee 5s really need the small camp open in particular.
Okay. Why does melee 5 need it more like a Treant than say Ancient Apparition?
Because an AA can always like attack you here. Like let's say you get the lane to like here, AA can always hit you anyway, but Treant can't do anything. If he has nothing to do, he has to pull. Otherwise he's useless. Like let's say you get the lane to here and you have Rasta against Lifestealer Treant. They can't touch you and you're destroying them. So the only way they can fix the lane is by pulling it.
Okay.
But generally always block small.
So the idea is that if the enemy support is ranged, they always have something to do, which is to hit you. If they're melee, it's a lot harder to do that, so they'll be standing around doing nothing more often, which is useless and bad. In that case, that melee support will want to pull the small camp to get the lane in a better spot, closer to their tower, so it's easier to hit you.
Do you value Observer Ward in this lane? Like in SF4?
Not for the lane, no. It's the first 2 wards are for bounty runes and mid maybe. And then at like minute 3 or 4 I'd buy a ward and put it in their jungle. Like up here I put some ward.
Okay.
For the sake of nighttime coming, see their mid laner, see the bounty rune here.
Okay.
But you don't need it in lane.
Ari is giving feedback on a game Grubby just played as position 4, and he talks about why it's better to hit the enemy support over the enemy carry in the first 3 minutes of the lane.
And
Generally-
why am I hitting Treant over Luna?
Because in the first 3 minutes of the game I'd say hitting the support's better than the carry.
In
Because
general?
Yeah, because that means he can't fight for the camps, and then his carry will be 1v2 because the support's too low to help. And typically the support will body for the carry, so if you want to hit the carry, you'll take bad trades to get to him, like you kind of did for the range creep. Like let's say the range creep is Luna,
That's right, that range creep was Luna, yeah.
then it's the same idea. Whereas you should just hit what's in front because you can. And then the damage on the carry will come naturally after that. But hitting the train is really high value.
Okay.
But the general idea is you should hit him a lot and he can't touch you.
Yeah.
And then when he's really low, you can then think about hitting Luna or killing him or pulling the camp because he's too low to fight for the camp.
Ari wraps up his thoughts here and gives a good note on how things are never black and white in Dota, since there's so many variables to take into account.
I would say, again, with any mistake, it's a to what extent situation. It's never black and white in this game. Everything's grey. If someone says something's good, someone says something's bad, they're probably both wrong. If someone played it better, it might be good. If someone played it worse, it might be bad. If you had this item, it might be better.
Right.
There's too many variables, but you can build your intuition and take what you think is right.
Yeah.
And test what you think is right every game.
Shout out to Grubby for streaming this, and thanks to Ari for giving such great advice on how to improve and win games. I'll be linking both of their stuff in the description, so be sure to check them out. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope you learned something new with me.